Counts of falsifying business records in Manhattan. His next court appearance is set for December 4th. New developments this morning in that possibly toxic refinery release in Martinez. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District just released this report I have here in my hands on the impact to the surrounding communities. Well, this all started more than 5 months ago, so I want to backtrack a little bit for a second. Ash was spotted falling from the sky over parts of Martinez and Pacheco after a release of hazardous materials from the Martinez Refining Company. Well, residents were warned days later, don't consume any of the produce grown in your yards in case of dangerous contamination. Kind of scary. So left the community up in arms with people demanding answers about the risk to their health. So last night, city officials heard from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District investigating that dust fallout. So this sound you're going to hear right here is a similar concern we heard repeated over and over again.
Operators are supposed to inform us of opacity excesses. And so that's one of the areas of investigation. Like, why didn't that happen?
It's a question that we heard a lot. Why? So the purpose of the Air District's report is to provide this map you see here. This is what they've been waiting for. It is solely for the county to use for their soil sampling program. To be clear, this map is not stating where residents are impacted by that catalyst material. That will be determined later through toxicology, done through the soil sampling off the areas based off this map. It's just a small piece to the search for answers for so many people who just want to feel safe in their own backyard.
But this was going to be our big garden, and I was going to have all kinds of tomatoes and zucchini and cucumbers and all kinds of stuff.
Heidi Taylor moved into her Martinez house just last summer, and the space was created to be a vibrant garden in her own backyard. But now Heidi and her neighbors in the area are being told to not consume anything grown in their own yard.
Those are probably seriously poisonous tomatoes. I'm afraid to touch it, honestly.
On Thanksgiving night, the neighboring Martinez Refinery Company, which processes crude oil and other feedstocks to convert into gasoline, had a release of what it calls a spent catalyst. MRC says what this is primarily alumina silicate, clay, and other minerals mined from the earth. And it's referred to as spent or used catalyst as it has been incinerated at high temps to remove impurities so the catalyst can be reused. But a release of that used catalyst into the air can cause a lot of problems. That is not supposed to happen, and this is what it looked like, a white ash that spread for hours overnight.
It was everywhere. It was on our trash. It was on the house. It's on our plants. And it's this white ash that just aerosolized and went everywhere. And when I think of that, it freaks me out.
And it actually released toxic metals into the air from 9:30 p.m. on November 24th until it was stopped early the next morning. Now, to make things even more concerning, no one was alerted about it.
And this is all while we knew nothing about this. We thought it was chimney soot.
The county has a community warning system in place for that very reason. Residents should get a text, phone call, email, or see it on social media. Yet, it wasn't put to use because the Martinez Refinery Company did not advise the county health department or the sheriff's office about the leak.
If they are going to be my neighbor, then they have to operate safely, and they have to communicate with us, and they have to let us know what's going on. If they had told us about that release, we could have stayed inside. We could have taken the proper precautions, but they didn't say anything about it. That's the problem.
Industrial facilities such as MRC are required by state law to notify them within 15 minutes of situations just like this. It wasn't until 2 days later when the health department saw what happened by people posting about it on social media.
Or when the results came back from the county health testing, that's when I got really scared.
The department immediately ran tests that found higher than normal amounts of heavy metals that can be dangerous.
You have to remember, oh my gosh, what did I eat? What did I touch? What did I breathe? All of these questions are still outstanding. We don't have answers to any of those questions. So it's unnerving.
Do you feel that the refinery was negligent in honoring public health with how delayed they were in response and making it aware of what happened?
I think there's serious concerns about the refinery's reaction in the days and hours after this happened. Had we been notified at the time, we would have taken every measure we could to prevent people inhaling this toxic dust. Unfortunately, we weren't informed until a few days later, and we only found out on social media. So we couldn't take those steps we would normally take in that scenario.
Dr. Ori Savelli is the public health officer for the county. In the health department's initial testing, they reported they do not believe there is an immediate health risk. However, exposure of high concentrations over a long period of time could cause more serious health problems.
As far as inhalation concern, is really around a couple of metals, nickel, zinc, and there's some concern about long-term carcinogenesis. There's some concern about effects in the immune system.
A community oversight committee has been set up in response to this. Most recently, that committee has requested a toxicologist to test the contaminated soil.
We're months later. This happened in November, and now we're heading into March. Is it too little too late for toxicology at this point, or should that have happened back right after this happened?
Well, I've heard that concern from many people. People want answers and they want them now. They want to know what's in their yard, and that's very reasonable and understandable. We want to do this right, and part of it is understanding exactly where the dust went. Because we were not informed initially, we are having to piece together what happened after the fact.
That oversight committee will be meeting again to review the plume modeling results from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District as soon as April 6th.
As it gets further and further and more information is known, it's horrific. I just can't fathom that. And not knowing what that means for us, it's just very scary.
So I spoke with the district attorney's office about what violations the health department asked them to review. So one is being the failure to report a release or threaten release of a hazardous material to the Unified Program Agency and Cal OES. That other violation, which prohibits the discharge or release of illicit discharges to the county stormwater system. I am told by the DA's office this could take several months to reach a charging decision, so we'll update you on that when we get that. Last night, after receiving this new report from the Air District, I spoke with a representative with the Martinez Refining Company to see if they would give a statement in response to the report. They declined over the phone and referred me to their original statements at this time. Those original statements I got back in March when I asked them if they could discuss the incident with me on camera, in which they also declined, responding to my questions via email. Well, Contra Costa Health Services says in response to this new report, this quote, the toxicologist the health department hired will use the plume model to help guide where to take soil samples and then have those samples analyzed for any health concerns. We expect to have test results from the soil sampling early summer. A lot of people waiting on that. That full report, more information can be found on our website. I have it all for you at kpix.com. Now, to expand on this, joining me now live is Dr. Phil Martin from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. We heard from him earlier before the story at City Hall last night. He contributed to the findings in the dust fallout report. Dr. Martin, thanks so much for taking a break this morning to actually break this all down for us. So I want to start with the map presented at the Air District last night. We showed it in this story as well. Explain to us what we're looking at on it.
Yeah, so the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, we have a technical team that applies computer-based air quality models that allow us to track pollution that's emitted and allows us to determine levels of air pollution in the air that we breathe, or in this case of the incident at the Martinez Refinery Company, the levels of the dust fallout on the ground.
And this will help with that soil sampling that they will do for toxicology. So I find it incredibly fascinating how your team was able to put all this information together after the fact. A lot of factors go into creating a final report like this. So can you give us a little explanation about that process and the science behind it?
Yeah, it's definitely a forensic process. And the way that we do this is similar to the way that meteorologists would forecast the weather. Weather forecasts also use computer-based models. In fact, the model that we apply to generate winds that goes into this forensic evaluation is the same model that's used to forecast severe storms, but instead of predicting rain events, we're tracking pollution levels or dust fallout.
Interesting. So a lot of things go into this for you to get that final report. All right, I want to go back to something that we showed earlier when we showed this story. Last night at Martinez City Hall, you presented that report. So I want to go back to something that you said. We aired it earlier too. This was your quote. Operators are supposed to inform us of opacity and excess, and so that is one of the areas of investigation. Why didn't that happen? Can you answer how did that impact your investigation for this report?
So we did eventually get information from the refinery. For example, the stacks that emitted the dust have opacity meters that are supposed to alert them to alert us. But eventually we got that information, and that was helpful in estimating the levels of emissions. It's not an exact estimate, but it's the best information that we had. So we were able to gather some information.
And that's what we've been able to share with our viewers this morning and a lot of concerned residents in Martinez. I think with this, we can figure out a lot of cracks in the system and move forward stronger next time, hopefully in a more positive way to keep people more informed and get answers a lot more quickly. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Phil Martin from the Air District. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tax deadlines are much different this year. The good news is that you have an extra time this time. We'll break down the deadlines coming up at 9 a.m. and where some procrastinators, you know who you are, you can turn to for some last minute help.